In the early part of the 20th century, Wake Forest was a town with muddy, unpaved streets, no public schools, and not a single stretch of sidewalk. But it did have Wake Forest College, and along South White Street, a thriving business district with groceries and department stores. And it had Glen Royal Cotton Mill, where Joyce Alford Davis was born in 1917. Both of her parents worked at the mill. Her father was a mechanic. Her mother also handled machinery. Joyce recalls the mill village of her childhood, with its tidy, well-kept houses, as a happy, tight-knit community.
Well, they were like four room houses with a front porch, and we all loved the front porch. And of course, way back there was no bathrooms, but now they all have bathrooms. They've been remodeled, but they look the same from the outside. And they were all painted white with green shutters, and like I said, the front porches. We all loved our front porches, and stayed on the front porches a whole lot. A lot of them were screened, and we had big back porches and gardens. We had big lots, which people don't get to have these days and time. And we all had flower gardens and vegetable gardens. And way down at the back, they'd even let you raise hogs if you wanted to. And some people even had cows. And it was just kind of extension of the farm life. A real nice way to live. But my parents still worked in the mill, and they worked from 6 to 6. I was a little girl, and they'd come home for supper, and we had somebody that stayed with us. Her name was Aunt Al, and she'd have supper, and then we'd go with my grandfather to his room to count his money. He had a sugar sack. Long bean sugar came in bags, little cloth bag. He carried his money in that sugar sack, and we had to open fire. And always he had potatoes up under the grate, and he'd crack him a pan full of black walnuts every night before dark, because he didn't have any outside lights. And he'd have that pan of black walnuts and pull those sweet potatoes out. And we'd have a bedtime snack and count money and read the funny paper. He could run the store and count his money, but he couldn't read. He was a dear old soul, but he couldn't read. He died when I was 10.
In the decades that followed, the village spent many years saying a long goodbye to its old way of life. Although Joyce and her husband remained in Wake Forest to raise their family, the mill fell on hard times. It changed hands, faced unionization, and eventually shut down. But led by Joyce and others like her, the generations of children born and raised in the mill village keep their memories of that place very close to their hearts, carrying its lessons and values into the future.
Do you live in the past very often?
Pardon?
Do you live in the past very often?
I try not to. No, the present is too precious. You know, you live in the moment. I try to live in the moment and be thankful for every day.
"1928 was notable as the year a locomotive ran into the back of Powers Drugstore on South White Street in Wake Forest. But it was also the year Mary Evelyn Alston Jones was born, across the tracks in the African American community now known as the East End. Only 63 years after the close of the Civil War, the woman who brought Evelyn into the world was a former slave, a respected midwife, and her own great-grandmother, Mama Ellen.
And I also had a cousin that was born on that same day, the same night. And my mother told my daddy to go tell Mama Ellen she was ready and she could go back to his sister later and deliver her baby. So I was born 1 hour earlier than my first cousin, and we always called ourselves twins, and we didn't know any better. We thought we were twins because we were born on the same day.
In that era, the town's black community had its own stores, churches, and school, which husbands and fathers donated land and labor to build. But it was the women who left the deepest impression on Evelyn, beginning with her grandmother.
She was not an educated woman, but she had what we call now, used to call mother wit. She had the knowledge of what was right and wrong, and that's what she taught us. And she worked in the fields. In the summer, she chopped cotton. In the fall, she picked cotton. And she would always ask us, "What do you want for Christmas?" And she would work all this time to save money to get us exactly what we wanted for Christmas, and to have what we call, kids don't have it now, confectionaries. California grapes and raisins that was still on the stem was something that we looked forward to, and she would always have boxes of them under her bed. And as children, we couldn't wait to get over to my Mrs. house at Christmas time to see what she had gotten us and to get all of that confectionaries that she was going to give us.
But not even the most loving family, nor these strong female role models, could erase the color barrier still dominating the American South, a reality Evelyn had to face on her own and in her own way, and which shaped her life and who she would become.
Because I wanted to be a nurse, too. Just wanted to be so bad, but didn't have the money to go. Mr. LeCompte, he taught at St. Aug. He came to the house one day and he says, "Miss Austin, I got a way that Evelyn can go to school." Oh, I was just grinning. He says, "But it's in Georgia." Said she can go to nursing school free. Mama said, "Okay." I said, Mama, not me. Not me in my mouth. They done told me you had to bow to a white horse. You had to walk off the sidewalk and let the white person walk up. I said, "Mama, I would be in the highest tree that they could find." I said, "No, Mr. LeCompte, no. I can't go to Georgia." And he said, "Why, Evelyn?" I said, "The way I talk and butt in and everything, no, And that's, I guess, had I gone, I would have been a nurse.
Among these young Sunday school students at Olive Branch Baptist Church is Barbara Geraldine Hall-Taylor, who moved to Wake Forest in 1943. She first lived near Crenshaw Hall, which was out in the country back then, and remembers walking with her brother and cousin into town to go to the movies.
When we would go to the movie, at first I had to stop at the dime store to buy me a song book. And that day and time, because we listened to the radio all the time, I always listened to music, the songs. So I would get one of those song books that had the words to all the songs. And at that time, they were all country songs, as you might as well say. And when the songs come on the radio, I would get my book and sing with them on the radio. And then we would go around to the back of the movie, and we had to walk up those fire escape steps. And cause the white went in the front and the black went in the back. And I was always scared of height. So I would go by the step with hands because I was afraid I was going to fall. And then when I come back out, I would sit down on the steps to come down.
Geraldine earned money to go to the movies by taking jobs. Childhood in that era was a time of work for many, with chores often revolving around family.
Yeah, this is the iron that I used when I was a young child to iron out my brother, my mother, and my clothes. And we would heat it in the fireplace. And when the iron got hot, what we would do, we'll take it up, of course, out of cloth, a thick cloth to hold it by. And we'd take off there and do this and do that to see if it was hot enough. And if it was hot enough, we would take it and put it on the ironing board and set it up like that. And then get ready to iron and just go and iron.
Being raised by a single mother meant working together to earn a living, and Geraldine's responsibilities soon expanded. By her mid-teens, she was employed by several college professors and boarding houses, cleaning, cooking, and doing laundry to help support her family.
My brother and I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go over to Dr. Pearson's house, down to Dr. Pearson's house on College Street, pick up the clothes. They would be on a pillowcase on the porch, and carry them back home over on Allen Road and wash and iron them. And after we ironed them, we had to come back over here early in the morning before we went to school to bring the clothes back. And be hanging out clothes in the cold before going to school. And that's what I was doing then.
Black women who took jobs across the tracks were required to straddle two separate realities, two distinct identities. At home, they were smart, strong, and independent. But in the white homes where they worked, they were often expected to dim that light. For a generation with such a strong urge to fly beyond old expectations, and mothers who wanted to see them do just that, joining the local domestic workforce was not always a seamless transition.
And I worked with one, I think it was Miss Holiday, and she had dogs. And so she wanted me to get down on my knees to scrub the floor. And I had never been on my knees to scrub floors before. I always used mops at other houses. And so I didn't go back to her after that first day. But I didn't tell my mother. And so when mother came home the next day from when I was supposed to go back to her, I didn't go. So she somehow, I don't know if they had telephones then or not, but somehow she contacted my mother and told her that I didn't come to work. So when mother came home, she asked me why didn't I go? And I said because she wanted me to get on my hands and knees to scrub her floor behind those dogs. And I didn't want to do that. So I saw when she turned her head and smiled to herself. So she contacted a lady and told her that she needed to get a mop. So she told me to come back to work. So after then, I didn't have any more problems.
And my mother was, hold your head up, hold your shoulders back. You know, I told you before, she said, look a person in the eye, don't hold your head down. You haven't killed anybody, don't hold your head down. And that, she embedded that within me because her mama was humble. And she usually, and I shouldn't even say this, but she said it. I don't take back, I don't get back. No further than I'm knocked back, and ain't nobody gonna knock me back. my principal was a very stern man. He was a West Indian from Barbados. And he always would say, I want an English subject. And we had to walk the line. I mean, there were certain things in school that we couldn't do, and we had to walk on one side, like you drive on one side of the road. We walked one side of the hall. You did not touch the wall with your hand because, and if you did, girlie, you would be punished. If you talked, you would be punished, and he could be right there, and you would know. And I was always a person that talked and laughed.
The academic burden was heavy for black students who, as the saying goes, had to be twice as good just to prove they were equal. Perhaps this is why the East End's 1930s era principal, Professor Best, chose to name his school after a black intellectual synonymous with the early battle for civil rights.
It wasn't called Du Bois at the time. It was Wake Forest Colored School when I started. And then at the third grade, Mr. Best came, and he wanted to change the name of the school. And so he had the parents to come to PTA and give a name. So everybody gave different names. I had never heard of W.E.B. Du Bois. Nobody had. And everybody had sent in Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, and all those different names because that was who we had heard. And so he said, no, I have a name. And that's the name he gave us.
And it's the name they kept until integration came in 1970. And their school became Wake Forest Junior High. Geraldine Hall-Taylor's children were among the first black students to make the move to the newly integrated high school.
I was president of the PTA at that time, and I reluctantly dreaded going because then, like I say, that's when I had learned the difference between black and white and how whites treat black, you know. And so I became, since I had always been with, I call white people before then, that it wasn't very hard for me to really get to be with them. And but it was like, say, some of our other members didn't like the idea. But and I told them, I said, well, they're people just like we're people. And you just have to learn to get along with them.
I have my first grade reading book called The Child World Primer. And my first grade would be about 1923. And it's a real interesting little book. And we always called it the Baby Ray book. And a little Bo Peep's in here, and I saw the moon sees me. And this one I've turned to is Bad Bad Black Sheep, Have You Any Wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. Now I'm sure most children, maybe not this generation, but my generation, the following generation, and my kids remember some of these things in this book. And this is a real old book, and I treasure it very much. And it was published by the state of North Carolina and cost 42 cents. The price is on the back.
For girls from the Mill Village, like Joyce, school wasn't only about learning. Frequently, it was also a proving ground, the place where they could use intelligence and hard work to show they were every bit as smart and accomplished as the more affluent children of Wake Forest College professors.
And what you make? I would sit up all night for that, so I could say I made as much, if not better, than they did. And I think that was the way a lot of them felt. And that's what made our at-school average so high. I've always known that's what made our average high. We were devastated when the college left because this town was built around the college and was part of our livelihood. And we had a lot of members from the college, boys, come to our church and help us in different areas of the worship service because they were studying to be ministers, and they were a big help to us.
When the college left in 1956, the whole town was affected, mostly financially. Restaurants and boarding houses struggled and shut down. Public school classrooms were suddenly half empty. The children of faculty had relocated and left the locals behind. But life in the Mill Village and East End continued almost as normal. In these neighborhoods, nobody was faculty. Everybody stayed. Despite the upheaval on campus, these extended families, because of their relative isolation, remained virtually intact.
Everybody knew everybody. It was like one big family. And we used to hear somebody say, well, did Joey come for supper? And they would say, well, he ate supper with with somebody. Because whoever was at your house, they always eat. And we, like I said, we were like a big family. We rejoiced with each other, and we were sad with each other, and we helped out each other. And it was just a good place to live.
Nobody was strangers. Neighbors helped neighbors take care of their children, punish their children. No child did anything wrong where the parent didn't find out. That was good. And if I did something wrong, mother, we didn't have any telephones, but mother knew it when she came home from work. And she would ask me about it. And I was saying, how did she find that out?
Of course, nowhere was this closeness more deeply felt than at church. Church was the center of each community. Olive Branch Baptist Church in the East End and Glen Royal Baptist Church in the Mill Village. They were special. Each was a second home, a symbol of strength, friendship, and love. And because of these women who remember the way things used to be, who hold on to their unique heritage, those values continue to endure and to keep the legacy of these neighborhoods preserved, even today.
A lot of new people are moving in, and they call you nosy. But I don't call it, I call it concern. If I don't see you 1 or 2 days, what's wrong? Let me call. Let me go in there and knock. But young folk, they haven't seen you call move today. They say you're being nosy, but it's not. It's being concerned. And that's what I like about where I live.
And I've been singing in the choir since I was 12.
Do you still sing?
I sing in the gospel choir and the senior choir.
Sing something for me.
Oh.
A few notes.
I'll
sing with you, but I can't carry a tune.
Okay, I sing all the time at home. I'll sing, oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed.
Well, my church is my favorite place. My granddaughter calls it my grandma's church. You know, and I was thinking, Illinois, she said, grandma's church. That's my grandma's church. And my daddy was a custodian when I was a child. And that meant you had to go up and make up the fires in the wintertime, you know, and I must have been about 3 because my sister wasn't old enough to go. And we'd go up there on Sunday morning, and my dad would make the fires, and then he'd get ready when it was time. He'd hold me up and let me ring the bell. And I love that bell. Now they got so they ring it, but don't ring like it used to. But anyway, we'd ring the bell. So I've already told my pastor, when I die, I want that bell rung for every year I've lived.
That's going to be beautiful music.
It will. I love that old church.
Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou